It began with a flash in the sky. Not the kind of light people made wishes on, not a meteor or a satellite burning up. It was brighter, sharper, like a tear opening in the heavens. For 3 seconds, every city on Earth stood still, bathed in a pale silver glow that turned night into day. Then silence. Streetlights flickered. Airplanes froze mid-air, their engines humming but their guidance systems dead. Phones went black. Computers shut off. Every TV screen, every billboard, every camera, dead. The entire planet blinked in confusion, and then a voice spoke. It wasn't heard through speakers or radios. It was everywhere. It echoed inside buildings, inside cars, inside people's minds. Calm, deep, not human. This is the Galactic Dominion. You have 3 planetary rotations to surrender. Resistance means extinction. The voice didn't shout. It didn't need to. It carried a weight that felt older than time, steady as stone. When it ended, the silence that followed was worse than the message itself. No one moved for a full minute. Then the world erupted. In New York, people flooded into the streets, staring upward at the sky where strange lights moved in perfect silent formation. In Tokyo, subway tunnels filled with panicked crowds as the emergency lights turned red. In Moscow, generals rushed to underground bunkers, barking orders into dead radios, and high above them all, beyond the clouds, something vast and metallic hung over the moon, black against the stars. News drones caught fragments of the image before their signals died. A ship so large it made the moon look small beside it. Its surface shimmered with energy fields, and thousands of smaller ships circled it like insects around a flame. Within hours, fragments of communication returned. Broadcast stations struggled back online. Television anchors read reports with trembling voices. Massive objects detected beyond lunar orbit, one said. Energy readings off the charts. No known technology on Earth can explain it. The world's scientists, politicians, and soldiers gathered in emergency meetings. The United Nations building overflowed with voices, angry, scared, desperate. Some believed it was a hoax. Others whispered that it was Judgment Day. But the message came again. Every screen, every speaker, every phone vibrated with that same deep voice. 3 planetary rotations. Submit or be erased. The words rolled across the world like thunder. In London, church bells rang without anyone touching them. In Delhi, crowds filled the temples. In Rio, people cheered and sang. Half in madness, half in defiance. The countdown had begun. Governments released orders to remain calm, but fear spread faster than information. Armies were mobilized. Fighter jets streaked across the sky, though none dared cross into orbit. Satellites captured more details of the alien fleet, hundreds of ships, each larger than a city. They moved with mathematical precision, glowing lines of blue and gold energy rippling across their hulls. They didn't attack. They simply waited, watching. In an underground bunker beneath Geneva, world leaders held an emergency summit. Old enemies sat side by side. The President of the United States, the Premier of China, the Chancellor of Germany, all staring at the same projection. A rotating image of the alien mothership. Dr. Elena Hayes, Earth's ambassador to the Interplanetary Research Council, stood at the center of the room. She wasn't a soldier or a politician. She was a linguist, once a scientist studying patterns in deep space signals. Now she was the only person who might speak for humanity. They're using quantum broadcast frequencies, she said quietly. The message is written in every major human language at once. They've been listening to us for years. The generals in the room exchanged looks. One of them, an old man with medals across his chest, growled, "Then they already know we can't win." Another general slammed his hand on the table. "We must respond. Show them we won't surrender." Dr. Hayes shook her head. "They're not asking for war. They're demanding obedience. If we respond with anger, we give them what they expect." The room fell silent. Outside, the world trembled with uncertainty. Stock markets collapsed. Cities rioted. Power grids failed as panic drained the system. But far above Earth, in orbit, the alien fleet began to move. Hundreds of smaller vessels detached from the main ship, descending slowly toward the upper atmosphere. Their hulls shimmered with blue plasma, leaving trails like falling stars. Military radar stations tracked their movements, alarms blaring. Fighter squadrons were scrambled across continents. Nuclear silos armed themselves in silence. In Washington, The president stood in the Situation Room, staring at live satellite images. "Are they attacking?" he asked. "No, sir," a technician whispered. "They're positioning themselves, like they're waiting for something." The technician hesitated, then turned to face him. "Sir, they're forming a line, across the entire horizon." Outside, people looked up in wonder and terror as a curtain of light spread across the night sky. It wasn't fireworks or auroras. It was alien ships, hundreds, maybe thousands, blocking the stars. The voice came one last time that night, colder than before. 3 days remain. Obedience ensures survival. And then silence. The lights faded. The ships stopped moving. The moon hung quiet in the dark. Dr. Hayes looked up from her console, her face pale under the glow of the holographic map. She whispered to herself, almost too softly to hear. "They're not bluffing." Somewhere deep inside her chest, a quiet thought took root. Maybe humanity couldn't win a war of power. But there were other kinds of wars, wars of will, of defiance, of spirit. And as the first day of the countdown ended, the people of Earth looked to the sky, not as slaves waiting for mercy, but as a species wondering if this was the moment they would rise together. Humanity had faced wars before, but never against gods from the stars. And this time the gods would learn what it truly meant to face humanity. The message had shaken every corner of the world. 3 days to surrender. 3 days before extinction. Governments that once stood proud now trembled behind locked doors, and armies that had spent decades preparing for human wars now found themselves powerless against something they couldn't even understand. Beneath the streets of Geneva, deep inside a steel fortress built for world emergencies, the leaders of Earth gathered. The air was heavy with fear and anger. Old enemies sat side by side, the tension almost visible in the dim blue lights of the underground chamber. Generals in dark uniforms lined the walls, while scientists and diplomats filled the round table at the center. At its head stood Dr. Elena Hayes, the newly appointed ambassador of Earth, chosen not for her power but for her mind. She had been the first to decode the alien transmission. Now every eye in the room waited for her to speak. She looked at the holographic projection in front of her, a 3D model of the alien fleet orbiting the moon. The ships were massive, like floating cities, each glowing with blue energy veins that pulsed in rhythm like a heartbeat. "They haven't moved since the last broadcast," she said quietly. "They're watching us." A general from Russia leaned forward, his voice sharp. "Then we strike first, before they do." Across the table, the president of China shook her head. "Strike with what? Our missiles? They won't even reach orbit. The energy readings on those ships are far beyond our capacity." The American general slammed his fist on the table. "We can't just sit here waiting to die." "No one said we would," Elena replied, her calm tone cutting through the noise. She tapped the hologram, zooming in on one of the alien vessels. "Look here. The energy fluctuations are stable but not constant. They're maintaining a stasis field. That means they're conserving power, not preparing to fire." "Meaning what?" asked the French Prime Minister. "Meaning they're not in attack mode," Elena said. "They're testing us, waiting to see what we'll do." The room went silent for a moment. A low hum filled the chamber as computers processed live data from the remaining satellites. The world's most advanced machines working together for the first time. Yet everyone in the room knew it still might not be enough. A scientist from India, her voice trembling slightly, spoke up. "We tried sending them a signal. Radio, laser, even neutrino pulses. They ignore everything. They only listen when they speak first. So what do we do?" someone asked. "We can't win and we can't hide." Eleanor took a deep breath. "Then we don't do either. We think, we observe. We find out what they want before they take it." The German chancellor leaned forward. "And if what they want is us? Then," Eleanor said softly, "we make sure they never forget what it costs to take us." The generals exchanged dark looks. Some admired her courage. Others thought she was mad. But none could deny the fire in her eyes. It wasn't arrogance. It was the same quiet defiance that had carried humanity through every impossible war in history. Suddenly the main screen flickered. The alien fleet had moved. Gasps filled the room as new readings appeared, small vessels detaching from the main ship. The technician at the control desk shouted, "They're deploying probes." Heading toward major cities, New York, Beijing, Cairo, Moscow, everywhere, the hologram lit up with red dots across the globe. The alien probes descended silently through the atmosphere, each glowing like a falling star. Panic reports came in within seconds, massive metallic orbs hovering over city centers, not firing, just watching. The French Prime Minister whispered, "It's an invasion without guns." "No," Elena said, staring at the projection. "It's an evaluation. They're studying us." "For what?" asked the general from the US. She looked up, her face grim. "To see if we're worth keeping alive." A cold silence followed. The air itself felt heavy, as if the weight of the entire planet had sunk into that one room. Finally, the President of the United States leaned back and said, "We have two choices. We surrender and live under them, or we resist and die." Elena turned to face him, her voice steady and clear. "No, we have a third choice. And what's that? We make them underestimate us." Every person in the room turned to her. "For centuries," she said, "humans have survived by adapting faster than their enemies. They think we're weak because they see chaos and fear. But that's exactly what makes us dangerous. We don't follow patterns. We improvise." The Russian general frowned. "You're suggesting we pretend to surrender?" Elena's lips curved slightly. "I'm suggesting we let them believe we're afraid, while we prepare." The leaders exchanged uncertain glances. For the first time since the invasion began, there was a flicker of something in the air. Not hope, not yet, but possibility. The world was still broken, its people divided, but beneath that fear, something ancient stirred. Defiance. As the meeting ended, Elena stayed behind, staring at the holographic projection of the alien fleet. Her reflection flickered in the blue light, tired but determined. Somewhere out there, beings older and stronger than humanity were watching her world like a scientist watches an insect in a jar. But she wasn't afraid. She whispered to herself, "You gave us 3 days. That's 3 days too many." And in that silent chamber beneath the earth, a new kind of war began, not of weapons but of will. The war to remind the galaxy that humanity was not a species to be measured, but a force to be reckoned with. For 2 days, the alien fleet remained silent. Their ships hung above the world like floating tombs, motionless and cold, while the smaller probes watched from every sky. Humanity waited, trapped in the grip of fear and awe. Across the globe, power grids flickered, networks failed, and cities stood still, united only by the shared dread of what was coming. In Geneva, deep beneath the earth, Dr. Elena Hayes hadn't slept. The command room was a constant storm of voices, data streams, and satellite feeds. Every second, they searched for a weakness, a pattern, anything that could explain what the aliens wanted. "No communication from the Dominion since the last broadcast," reported a technician, his voice cracking. "Probes still stationary above all major capitals." Eleanor rubbed her eyes. "They're waiting for something. They expect us to respond," a general scoffed. "And what do we say to gods?" She turned toward him. "The truth." Silence fell around the table. The leaders of Earth had gathered again, their faces pale in the glow of the holographic map that showed hundreds of alien ships in orbit. The map pulsed like a heartbeat, each flicker reminding them of how fragile their world truly was. Elena stepped forward, her voice steady. "They're testing our resolve. Every civilization they've conquered probably surrendered immediately. If we do the same, we're finished before the war even begins." The French Prime Minister frowned. "And if we defy them?" "Then maybe," she said, "they finally see who we are." She walked to the comm station and placed her hand on the transmitter. "Patch me through to the primary signal network." The technician hesitated. "You can't just do it." Static filled the room as the global communication link opened. Every working satellite, every orbital relay, every remaining transmission tower pointed toward the alien flagship above the moon. The hum grew louder until the air itself seemed to vibrate. Elena stood before the microphone, her reflection shimmering in the glass. For a moment, she felt the weight of 8 billion hearts pressing on her shoulders. Then she spoke. "This is Dr. Elena Hayes representing the people of Earth." Her voice carried through the system, clear and calm. "We have received your demand. We understand your threat, but we will not surrender." Around the world, people listening from bunkers, rooftops, and broken cities held their breath. "We have fought ourselves. We have burned our own world, and yet we stand. If you want our planet, you will have to take it from us. And when you do, remember this. You may conquer our land, but you will never conquer who we are." The signal cut off. The room went silent. Every leader, every soldier, every scientist stared at her, half in awe, half in disbelief. "You just declared war," whispered one of the generals. Elena's gaze never wavered. "No, I just told the truth." Minutes passed. Nothing happened. Then the alien fleet stirred. The massive ships began to move for the first time in days, their blue energy veins pulsing brighter. Every radar system on Earth screamed with new readings. "They're responding!" a technician shouted. The main screen flashed to life, filled with static and strange symbols, then cleared. The alien commander appeared, a towering figure with skin like liquid metal and eyes that burned with golden fire. His voice thundered across the frequencies. "Primitive beings, you defy the Dominion." Elena stood tall. "We defend our home." "You misunderstand," the alien said, his tone amused. "You have no home. You exist only because we have not erased you. 3 planetary rotations remain. After that, there will be no Earth to defend." The connection ended abruptly, and the hologram of the fleet flared with new movement. Thousands of smaller ships began descending into lower orbit, their hulls glowing like molten stone. "They're preparing to strike," someone said. Panic swept through the control room. "Activate Project Horizon," Elena ordered. "It's not ready," shouted a scientist. "It's ready enough." All over the planet, hidden bunkers powered on. Deep-sea generators roared to life. The global defense grid, a network of satellites, energy nodes, and magnetic amplifiers, began to hum in unison. For decades, nations had fought over its funding. Now it was humanity's last shield. The alien fleet fired. Beams of white light streaked down toward the atmosphere like spears of the gods. Cities braced for destruction. But as the beams hit the sky, they vanished, absorbed into a glowing dome of blue energy that surrounded the planet like a second skin. "It's holding," shouted the technicians. "Project Horizon is holding." Cheers erupted, but only for a moment. The aliens adjusted their weapons, charging again. Helena watched as the entire night sky filled with light and thunder. The planet itself seemed to shudder under the storm. "They're testing the shield," she said. "And when they find its limit?" asked the general beside her. She looked up at the screen, her eyes reflecting the fire from above. "Then we make them believe there is no limit." Outside, across every continent, people stared at the sky in awe. For the first time since the invasion began, the stars weren't symbols of doom. They were symbols of defiance. Humanity had spoken, and the galaxy had heard. In the void above Earth, the alien commander watched the shimmering barrier around the planet and frowned. No species had ever resisted this long. No world had ever said no. He turned to his second-in-command. "Prepare the purge," he said. But deep inside his mind, a single unsettling thought whispered, a thought no Dominion warrior had ever known before. Doubt. The second day of the countdown began with thunder that wasn't thunder at all. The alien ships moved into new formations, spreading across the upper atmosphere like a storm made of metal. Their energy fields glowed red now instead of blue, pulsing faster, brighter, angrier. From the ground they looked like burning clouds drifting across the sky. In every capital city, alarms wailed. People were told to stay underground. The global news networks repeated the same line over and over. "Remain calm. Humanity is prepared," but no one really believed it. In Geneva, the command room was chaos. Technicians shouted readings across the hall. Energy surge on Sector 9. Magnetic shield holding at 82%. Orbital satellites losing sync. Dr. Elena Hayes stood in the center, watching the holographic globe spin before her eyes. The blue shield around Earth flickered in and out like a heartbeat under pressure. She clenched her fists. "They're testing us," she said. "They want to see how much we can take." The alien commander aboard the flagship, Lord Vesh, watched from above. His golden eyes narrowed as the human defense grid resisted their barrage. "Impressive," he muttered. "Primitive yet resilient." His second-in-command bowed. "Shall we increase power?" "Not yet," Vesh said. "Let them hope. It makes the end sweeter." The first strike began without warning. From orbit, hundreds of small alien ships broke formation, diving toward Earth like meteors. They cut through the clouds in perfect silence, leaving trails of light behind them. Every military radar lit up at once. "Incoming hostiles!" shouted a technician. Multiple vectors, North America, Europe, Asia, everywhere. Missiles launched from hidden silos. Jet fighters scrambled into the sky, leaving white contrails as they raced to intercept. The battle began in the upper atmosphere, where machines screamed and burned. The aliens moved with impossible precision, dodging missiles before they were even fired. Their weapons cut through human aircraft like paper. But humanity didn't stop. Over the Pacific, an American carrier launched a swarm of experimental drones powered by quantum AI. Over the Himalayas, Indian railguns fired magnetic slugs straight into the clouds, punching holes through enemy vessels. Over the Arctic, hidden bases awakened long-buried weapons, lasers, EMP cannons, and plasma bursts stolen from half-finished research projects. For the first time, the aliens realized Earth was not as defenseless as they believed. Yet the cost was terrible. Cities trembled as falling wreckage rained from the sky. Whole fleets were lost within hours. And still the humans fought on. "Status of Project Horizon," Elena demanded. "Power reserves dropping to 60%, a scientist replied. "If we keep the shield active, it won't last through another wave." "We have no choice," she said. "If the shield fails, we all die." A distant explosion rocked the facility, dust falling from the ceiling. The world above was burning. News feeds showed London under attack. A massive alien walker stood over the city, firing blue plasma into the streets, while tanks fired back from behind smoking rubble. Civilians ran through fire, carrying each other to safety. Soldiers refused to retreat. "Get civilians to the bunkers!" shouted one officer. "Buy us time." In Beijing, the sky glowed crimson as alien drones descended like locusts. But the humans had prepared. Skyscrapers opened at the top, releasing swarms of defense drones built in secret by engineers who had refused to stop working even after the world had ended. Across continents, humanity's chaos became its weapon. The aliens expected order and strategy. What they got was madness and creativity. Improvised weapons, hijacked satellites, old ships converted into flying bombs, all aimed at the invaders. "They're adapting faster than predicted," said the alien second-in-command aboard the flagship. "Their tactics are unpredictable." "Chaos," Lord Vesh said, watching the battle unfold. "It is their nature, and it will destroy them." But even as he spoke, something changed. A ripple spread through the human defense grid. The blue shield pulsed brighter than before. Eleanor turned toward the readings, disbelief on her face. "The magnetic field is amplifying itself. The planet's core is resonating with the shield." "Is that possible?" asked one of the scientists. "It's not supposed to be," she said. The aliens fired another massive beam. It hit the shield, exploded in light, and then rebounded, reflecting straight back toward them. The shockwave tore through a formation of enemy ships, ripping them apart in silence. For the first time, alien wreckage burned across the stars. The command room erupted in cheers. Around the world, soldiers watched as flaming debris streaked through the sky like meteors. Humanity had drawn blood. On the flagship, alarms blared. Lord Vesh stood, his golden eyes narrowing. "Impossible," he hissed. "No world has ever—" "Their defenses have adapted," said his lieutenant. "Shall we withdraw?" Vesh glared at him. "No. Prepare the ground forces. If their sky cannot be broken, we will crush them from below." As the alien ground ships prepared to descend, Eleanor received new data from the orbital sensors. Thousands of signatures descending fast. She stared at the hologram. "They're coming," she whispered. "They're sending troops." The world below was already in ruins, yet the true battle was only beginning. Across deserts, oceans, and forests, people looked up and saw fire streaking across the heavens. For the first time, the fear in their eyes began to change. It was still fear, but mixed now with something else. Anger, defiance. Humanity had been knocked to its knees many times before, but it always rose again. As the alien ships fell toward the earth like a rain of fire, one thought echoed through the heart of every living human. Let them come. The third day began in fire. Across the world, the alien ground forces descended like thunder. Their dropships tore through clouds, spewing blue light and shockwaves that shattered windows for miles. The first impact struck near Cairo, then another over the Amazon, then dozens more across Europe, Asia, and the Americas. The earth shook beneath their arrival. Towering machines emerged from the dust, metal giants with 4 legs, glowing cores, and cannons that burned through tanks like paper. Their weapons tore cities apart, but humanity did not run. They had already decided there would be no surrender. In the streets of New York, soldiers took cover behind broken cars, firing rockets at alien drones that screamed through the air like angry ghosts. In Tokyo, engineers turned train tunnels into traps, flooding them with high-voltage plasma bursts that fried alien walkers the moment they entered. In the African savannah, guerrilla units used old trucks and drones made from scrap metal to ambush alien convoys moving toward major cities. The world was no longer fighting as nations. It was fighting as one living creature, wounded but furious. Inside the Geneva command bunker, Dr. Elena Hayes watched the chaos unfold on a massive wall of holographic screens. "Status of the shield?" she asked. 70%, a technician replied, sweat dripping down his face. "Power cells overheating. If it drops below 50, they'll breach orbit. Keep it stable," she ordered. "Redirect power from inactive sectors." The room trembled as distant explosions shook the ground. The aliens had begun targeting the power nodes feeding Project Horizon. If they destroyed enough of them, Earth's last defense would fall. "They can't hold this forever," said General Stroud, his uniform stained with dust and blood. "We need an offensive." Elena nodded slowly. "We already have one." Across the ocean, hidden beneath the ice of Antarctica, a weapon decades in the making came to life. The Prometheus Array, a global network of magnetic cannons designed to manipulate the ionosphere, activated with a roar that echoed through the planet's crust. Lightning tore through the skies across continents, striking alien ships with unnatural precision. The aliens had advanced technology, but they had never faced a planet itself fighting back. "Fire the next sequence," Elena commanded. The magnetic field pulsed again. The entire sky over Europe erupted in white-blue light as energy beams arced from ground to orbit. Dozens of alien ships exploded instantly, fragments raining down in streaks of burning metal. The command center erupted in cheers. "They're retreating!" A technician shouted, but Elena shook her head. "No, they're regrouping." In orbit, Lord Vesh stared at the growing storm around Earth. His fleets had crushed 100 worlds, but never one that fought like this. "Their defiance is illogical," he said. "They cannot win, and yet they refuse to die," his second-in-command replied. "Perhaps they don't understand fear." "Then we will teach them," Vesh hissed. He ordered his fleets to deploy the Dominion's deadliest weapon, a planetary disruptor capable of tearing through the magnetic shield. As it charged, the energy output of the weapon glowed like a newborn sun. On Earth, sensors detected the rising readings immediately. Elena's eyes widened. "They're preparing something big," she said. "If that thing fires, we're finished." "Can we stop it?" asked General Stroud. "Not directly," she replied. "But we can make them stop themselves." She turned to the communications officer. "Patch me into every remaining satellite, every frequency. I want the whole galaxy to hear this." The man hesitated. "Ma'am, the array is unstable." "If we use it for transmission—" "Do it," she snapped. "This is our only chance." The array shifted frequencies, the magnetic field bending not to defend but to speak. Across the stars, energy patterns rippled outward, forming waves of encoded sound. The message was simple: live footage of humanity's resistance. Cities still standing, soldiers still fighting, people helping each other in the ruins. Humanity had turned its pain into strength, its fear into fury. The transmission spread beyond the Dominion fleet, bouncing through deep space, reaching other worlds, other enslaved species watching in silence. And then something unexpected happened. Those worlds began transmitting back. Weak signals, distorted by distance but unmistakable. Voices from alien planets whispering one phrase over and over: "We are not alone." In the Dominion flagship, chaos spread as dozens of unknown frequencies flooded their systems. Lord Vesh slammed his clawed hand against the console. "Shut it down!" But it was too late. The humans had done something no species had ever dared. They had turned defiance into a weapon. Back on Earth, Elena stood before the glowing map, her voice trembling with exhaustion. "They wanted us to surrender," she said softly. "Instead, we gave the galaxy hope. Outside, the battle still raged. Flames lit the horizon, and alien machines continued to march. Yet something had changed in the air. Soldiers fought harder. Civilians refused to hide. The shield pulsed brighter than before, fed by the planet's own magnetic energy, now synchronized with the Prometheus array. Power levels rising again. A scientist cried, "How?" "I don't know," he said, his eyes wide. "It's like the planet itself is fighting back." Eleanor smiled faintly. Maybe it finally is. The alien disruptor charged, ready to fire, but as it reached critical power, the feedback from the magnetic resonance hit it like a hammer. The weapon overloaded. A massive explosion lit the void, tearing through the Dominion fleet. For the first time, the unstoppable had been stopped. The surviving ships began to scatter. "They're retreating," whispered General Stroud. Eleanor shook her head, her voice calm but resolute. "Not yet. They'll be back, but now they know who we are." She looked up at the burning sky. The war wasn't over, but for the first time humanity had drawn breath without fear. Across the world, people rose from the rubble, staring at the horizon with new eyes. The third day wasn't just the day Earth survived. It was the day the galaxy learned that humanity would never kneel us. The sky was still burning when the world realized the so impossible had happened. The Dominion was retreating. Fragments of their ships drifted through orbit, glowing like dying stars, while the last of their ground troops fell silent under the smoke-choked horizon. Humanity stood battered but unbroken. Cities were in ruins, oceans scarred, and millions gone. Yet for the first time in galactic history, the invincible had been defeated. In the command bunker beneath Geneva, the atmosphere was a mix of disbelief and exhaustion. "Are they really gone?" someone asked. No one dared to answer. Dr. Elena Hayes stared at the holographic display, which still showed clusters of enemy signatures blinking away one by one. "They're retreating, but not gone," she said quietly. "They'll regroup, and when they do, they'll come with everything." General Stroud nodded grimly. "Then we rebuild faster." Outside, soldiers climbed from trenches, their faces smeared with ash and hope. Civilians emerged from shelters, blinking at the smoke-filled dawn. The war wasn't over, but something inside humanity had shifted, an awakening that could not be undone. Across the planet, new alliances formed in hours that would have taken decades before. Former enemies stood side by side, united by a single truth: survival. The global communication networks were a mess, but one frequency remained clear: the emergency channel linked to Project Horizon. Every hour its signal pulsed across the world. Humanity stands, rebuild, resist. Elena spent the next 2 days coordinating rescue operations, guiding engineers and scientists to restore the power grid and life support systems. Every country contributed what they could. The old rivalries seemed to dissolve in the face of what they had just endured. But in the quiet moments, Eleanor couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The Dominion's withdrawal had been too sudden, too organized. They hadn't fled in panic. They had retreated with purpose. Deep in orbit, far beyond the debris field, the remnants of the Dominion fleet gathered in silence around a massive flagship. Lord Vesh stood before the viewing window, watching Earth spin below. His armor was cracked, his pride wounded, but his rage burned brighter than ever. "They defied us," he hissed. "They broadcast our failure across the stars." His second-in-command, Vora, bowed her head. "The Council demands your report, my lord." "The Council can wait," Vesh growled. "We are not finished. The humans think they have won, but they have only awakened what they do not understand." He turned to a dark console at the edge of the chamber and pressed his hand against it. The holographic image of a vast structure appeared, an artificial moon hidden in the void, surrounded by energy storms. "Initiate Project Eclipse," he commanded. "Let them taste despair before extinction." Meanwhile, back on Earth, strange readings began to appear on the Prometheus array's sensors. Gravitational anomalies near the edge of the solar system. "It's like something's bending light itself," said a technician. "A black hole." "No," Eleanor replied, narrowing her eyes. "It's moving too precisely." She zoomed in on the readings. The signature wasn't natural. It was controlled. "Whatever it is, it's coming this way." The room fell silent. Humanity had barely survived one invasion. Now another threat was approaching. "We can't fight again," Stroud said, his voice low. "Our weapons are depleted. Our armies are scattered. Then we adapt, Elena said firmly. That's what humans do. She opened a channel to every surviving command center around the world. This is Dr. Hayes. We've detected another object entering the system. Prepare for defense operations. I don't care if your cities are still burning, we start now. Across the planet, factories began to hum again, powered by desperation. Engineers repurposed alien wreckage into new designs. Fighter pilots trained in simulators, powered by scavenged Dominion cores. Humanity was transforming its wounds into weapons. In the dark void between worlds, the object continued to move, massive, silent, pulsing with energy. On board the Dominion flagship, Vesh watched its progress with satisfaction. They think they can stand against us, he said softly. Let them try. On Earth, Elena stared at the readings. They're hiding something, she murmured. Something big. What do you suggest? Stroud asked. We go to them, she said. Before they come to us, the general frowned. You're proposing an attack? A preemptive strike, she replied. We can't wait for another invasion. We take the fight to their doorstep. There was silence in the room, then slow nods of agreement. Humanity had never launched a space assault beyond the moon, but now the impossible had become normal. Begin preparing the Ark-class ships, Elena ordered. We'll use what remains of their own tech to reach them. Engineers and scientists worked without rest. Within weeks, massive vessels rose from Earth's surface, glowing with hybrid human dominion technology. They weren't perfect, but they were powerful enough to travel the void. As the first ship, Horizon 1, launched into the sky, crowds gathered to watch. People cheered, cried, prayed. Humanity was no longer hiding beneath the stars. It was reaching for them. In orbit, Elena watched the planet shrink beneath her as she stood aboard the command deck of Horizon 1. We were given 3 days to surrender, she whispered. Now it's our turn to give them 3 seconds to regret it. Her voice carried across the comms, broadcast to every ship in the new Earth fleet. This is not just about survival anymore. This is about freedom. For every world they've enslaved, for every child they silenced. We fight not because we must, but because we can. The fleet engines ignited, streaks of blue fire cutting through the darkness as the ships accelerated toward the edge of the solar system. Behind them, Earth glowed faintly beneath its shield, scarred but defiant. The stars ahead flickered like the eyes of ancient gods, watching humanity's rise. In the distance, hidden among the shadows, the Dominion's artificial moon began to awaken, its core pulsing brighter with each second. The real war was only beginning. The human fleet cut through the darkness like fire through oil. 20 ships strong, forged from scavenged alien metal and human ingenuity, each vessel bore the scars of Earth's defiance. At their head, Horizon 1 led the charge, its engines blazing with blue plasma as it crossed the threshold of the solar system. The stars ahead were silent, cold witnesses to humanity's first interstellar strike. On the command deck, Dr. Elena Hayes stood beside General Stroud, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. Distance to target, she asked. 6 hours, Stroud replied. We're entering the outer system. No Dominion interference yet. That's what worries me, Elena murmured. She had studied the Dominion long enough to know they never stayed silent without reason. The object ahead, the so-called artificial moon, pulsed faintly in the void. Its energy readings fluctuated like a living heartbeat. It's a weapon, she whispered. Something beyond anything they've used before. Then we hit it hard and fast, said Stroud. Before it wakes. But deep inside the alien construct it was already awake. Lord Vesh stood within its core chamber, surrounded by holographic streams of data. The humans are approaching, reported Vora. They've launched a fleet. Vesh smiled darkly. Good, let them come. I want them close enough to see the moment hope dies. He turned toward the pulsating energy sphere in the center of the chamber. Activate the eclipse sequence. The sphere flared, sending shockwaves through the structure. Massive panels unfolded from the moon's surface, revealing enormous weapon arrays that began to glow. Back in Horizon 1, alarms blared. Energy surge detected, shouted the sensor officer. They're powering up something huge. All ships evasive formation Delta, Stroud ordered. The fleet scattered, engines roaring. Beams of white plasma erupted from the artificial moon, slicing through the void. 2 ships were vaporized instantly, their light swallowed by the blackness. The survivors returned fire, launching volleys of missiles and railgun bursts that streaked across space like glowing spears. Explosions rippled across the moon's surface, but the damage was minimal.